One of the things that I was really interested in talking about was the relationships between these locations that we've chosen, between these three rivers, in terms of this notion that I keep coming back to of trigger points.
Yeah.
Like this lake around Darfur is clearly going to be a trigger point.
Absolutely. Trigger point for war.
And the other part of that is, historically, of course, this whole region at one point was quite lush with vegetation. And so apparently this lake is some sort of vestige of that lushness.
Mm-hmm.
And my working theory has been that if we can identify these locations that are trigger points, we will find them in a state of maximum degradation, because those are the places that attract people and they will degrade them.
Mm-hmm.
And what could be more degrading than war? So the question is, what are the common issues? Besides that it's all tremendously unfair.
Well, I think that inequity in resources and the battle for resources and the scarcity of resources. And the scarcity issue comes from the fact that there's more and more people utilizing more and more resources. Then we have this inequity problem that we've created a system where you have haves and have-nots with huge differences.
And do we throw into the mix that the propensity of people confronted with a challenge is to resort to conflict?
Yeah.
So one of the key issues is that most people don't know how to deal with problems, and most populations don't know how to deal with problems except through conflict. So as an artist, as a scientist, what do we have to contribute to that kind of an analysis? How can we bring our skill sets to bear to see something that doesn't bring us back to the same old, same old?
That's a good question. And a hard one. I think we do what we have been doing. We try to lay the information as best we can out in front of people. Because in the end, I think that people are going to have to come to this recognition that we have a problem.
For me, personally, a tipping point occurred with Katrina. And at that point, I was so impacted by the reality of the effect of global warming that I found myself having a visceral response to the idea of flying and adding more carbon emissions to the atmosphere that would create global warming. And that's what has propelled me into working virtually. The virtual world, to me, is as much of a trigger point, meaning that it's a place of opportunity as well as potential degradation, as any of the geomorphological locations that we've been talking about. Jim, you talked about oscillations and the effect of baseline changes, and I wonder whether you would explain that briefly.
This is something that comes out of just examining climate, but it's true in, I think, just about every phase of ecosystems and life in general. There are certainly oscillations in nature. There's oscillations in human behavior as well. But oscillations bring you back to the same point, pretty close to it, after they've gone through their up and their downs. Baseline changes are something fundamentally different. That is where the state of the system is changing over time. This was a big argument in looking at the temperature of the planet 20 years ago, when people were saying, well, is the current warming part of a natural oscillation, or is it part of a baseline change? Of course, there's a fundamental difference there. Baseline changes don't come back to the old baseline. They are, by definition, change in state, while oscillations get you somewhat back to where you're going. It's a harsh reality that this wonderful society we have may not be around for that much longer, unless we find ways to deal with this. In the past, where very advanced society didn't change, didn't adapt, didn't see change coming, and fell apart. We want to live the way that Europe lives or the way the U.S. lives. We can't have more than about 1 billion, 2 billion people.
So, as you said, we are still in the denial mode. And as I said, as they say in AA or any of the 12-step programs, you have to hit rock bottom.
Yeah, and that, I stole that and used it in a talk the other night, and it's so powerful. You got to hit rock bottom.
And you said that you thought we hit rock bottom in the last election.
My fingers are still crossed. research career has been focused to a large extent on these large nonlinearities in the Earth system. And I'm more than happy with the concept that the Earth is very changeable very fast. And maybe that's, as a scientist, I'm less incremental than other scientists. I have to say that over the last 4 months, my approach to this issue has, I think, evolved. I was much more